Bonjour, Kinamagi and Nene Ireland Indigenicas, and welcome to this edition of Social Studies Explorer. Today's edition, Chapter 6, Section 8, Winter at Valley Forge. Valley Forge is seen as the pivotal moment in our story of revolution. Prior to and during the winter of 1777-78, it very much appeared like our army was about to collapse. As you look at the image here, you can see it's not the Four Seasons. There are people in blankets, some without, not properly clothed. The huts aren't good enough. And in fact, if you're laying outside, chances are you may be sick. On your own, you should list 10 questions you have about what you see in the painting. You're welcome to share some of these together. And if you're at home, you may share them with someone in your house. Here in the green box, the story of Valley Forge. An army of skeletons appeared before our eyes, naked, starved, sick, and discouraged, wrote New York's Gouverneur Morris of the Continental Congress. The Marquis de Lafayette wrote, the unfortunate soldiers were in want of everything. They had neither coats nor hats, nor shirts, nor shoes. Their feet and their legs froze until they were black, and it was often necessary to amputate them. A bitter George Washington, whose first concern was always his soldiers, would accuse the Congress of little feeling for the naked and distressed soldiers. I feel superabundantly for them, and from my soul pity those miseries, which it is neither in my power to relieve or prevent. The suffering and sacrifices of the American soldiers at Valley Forge are familiar, iconic, which means well-known, images. But there's another side of the picture. Valley Forge was where a new, confident, professional American army was born. 3 months of shortage and hardship were followed by 3 months of relative abundance that led to wonderful changes in the morale and fighting abilities of the Continental Army. France would enter the war on the side of the new nation. Valuable foreign volunteers and fresh replacements would trickle into camp. Most important, it was at Valley Forge that a vigorous, systematic training regimen transformed ragged amateur troops into a competent 18th century military organization capable of beating the Redcoats in the open field of battle. And a word there that you may have noticed, the word naked, does not mean how we may use it here in 2021, but what it means is that the clothes were ragged. They were not up to the task of what was going on. Valley Forge was where the American Continental Army made camp during the winter of 1777-1778. It was here that the American forces became a true fighting unit. In spite of the living conditions, soldiers learned and practiced fighting methods and shooting techniques and became hardened soldiers. Valley Forge is often called the birthplace of the American Army. Valley Forge is located in the southeastern corner of Pennsylvania. George Washington chose Valley Forge as the site for winter camp for several reasons. First, it was close to Philadelphia, where British were camping for the winter. He could keep an eye on the British by using his network of spies and protect the people of Pennsylvania. At the same time, it was far enough from Philadelphia so that the Continental Army could have plenty of warning if the British decided to attack. Also, Valley Forge was a good place to defend if the army was attacked. The conditions that the soldiers had to endure at Valley Forge were horrible. It was winter, so the weather was cold, wet, and snowy. Soldiers were often hungry because food was scarce. Many of the soldiers didn't have warm clothing. Their shoes had worn out on the long march to the valley. Living in the cold, damp, and crowded log cabins, with very few blankets, caused sickness and disease to spread quickly throughout the camp. Of the 10,000 men who began the winter at Valley Forge, approximately 25%, that's 2,500, of the men died before the spring. And we'd already read that description of the winter at Valley Forge. It was at Valley Forge where the Continental Army turned into a trained fighting force. There were three leaders in particular who played a key role in building the army. And yes, you should know these three by name if I ask you about them. The first was General George Washington, as you may know him, the first president of the United States. As commander in chief of the Continental Army, his leadership played a big role in the colonies gaining their independence from Britain. He stayed with the forces much of the time, and even his wife, Martha Custis, joined him some of the time to give her support to her husband and the young soldiers. Another, General Friedrich von Steuben. Friedrich von Steuben was a Prussian-born military leader who served under Washington. He took on the task of training the Continental Army. It was through von Steuben's daily drills, even in the cold of winter at Valley Forge, that the soldiers of the Continental Army learned the tactics and discipline of a true fighting force. And a third, General Marquis de Lafayette. Marquis de Lafayette was a French military leader who joined Washington's staff at Valley Forge. He worked for no pay and didn't ask for special quarters or treatment. Lafayette would later become an important commander at several key battles. So those three men are names that you really need to know. And without the work of all three together, we may still be singing God Save the Queen for a national anthem. Von Steuben in particular is an interesting story, as reports suggest that he may have embellished his resume, but the job that he did at Valley Forge was very real. We have reached the conclusion of this section. At this point, you should return to the Google Classroom to answer the questions that were posted there. If you have any further items for discussion, please feel to reach out to me. Hope you have a Minogijagad. Minwa, Lamapi.